Door an alteke Yiddische Mama, Mama, mine. The next page is the timber song. When I was a young man courting the girls, I played me a waiting game. If a maid refused me with tossing curls, I'd let the old earth take a couple of whirls, while I plied her with tears in lieu of pearls. And as time came around, she came my way. As time came around, she came. Oh, it's a long, long while from May to December, but the days grow short when you reach September, when the autumn weather turns the leaves to flame. One hasn't got time for the waiting game. Oh, the days dwindle down to a precious few. September, November, and these few precious days I'll spend with you. These precious days I'll spend with you. So when Mother passed away, it was on a Monday night, and it was a storm approaching. It was a sleet storm coming into Houston, and we made the decision to make the funeral on Tuesday afternoon. And for that reason, a number of people weren't able to be here to say goodbye. We wanted to make sure that the unveiling was a different time and make sure we were able to be here. And I wanted to take the opportunity for anyone who was there, who wasn't able to attend, that would like to say a few words about my mother and the impact she had on their lives. Now would be a great time to do so. So I want to, first of all, my brother, please come up first of all, say a few words. Yeah, okay, anybody else care to come up and say something?
Debbie.
Debbie.
Am I the only one?
Nope.
Does Axel say something? Look at it.
For me, growing up in Bay City in the 1950s was exactly like a scene out of the Andy Griffith Show, with the Den clan being part of the cast. But instead of having one Aunt B, I had two, Aunt Rosie and Aunt Gertie. Aunt Rosie had two daughters, Merle and Belinda. Merle and I were so close in age, we were like Irish twins. As a little girl, I practically lived over her house. I loved going to her house. Aunt Rosie would let us do pretty much anything we wanted to do without worrying about making a mess of things. In fact, we pretty much had the run of the house. I spent many wonderful and memorable days and nights of it. On many of my visits, when Merle and I would get bored playing with our Barbie dolls and our paper dolls, hours and hours and hours, we decided that we wanted to see what was going on over at Aunt Gertie's house. Since these aunts only lived a block apart from each other, getting there was so easy. Merle and I would just walk through her neighbor's backyard, as there were no fences at the time. We would run across 12th Street and go directly to Aunt Gertie. During those early years, Aunt Gertie had 3 boys, known to us as Bubba, Stevie, and Brian. Bubba and Stevie were very close in age to Merle and me. Brian was my brother Abram's age, so Abram spent a great deal of time at Aunt Gertie's house. In fact, he was like her 4th son back then. Whenever Merle and I showed up, it would be reasonable to assume there would be the 5 of us kids at her house, or 6 if Abram was there, which was husband. But this assumption would be wrong. You see, Aunt Gertie's house was the kid magnet of the neighborhood. You know, the house where everyone in the hood wanted to hang out. It was kid heaven. There was always some kind of ball game going on in her front yard. Hold on. With that many kids around, she had two choices: to either go crazy or let us run wild. Luckily for us, she chose the latter. Aunt Gertie always had stuff for us to eat and drink. In those days, parents weren't so obsessed with health foods, so there was always lots of Coke. You know, in Texan, Cokes mean any kind and all kinds of soft drinks. We had Suncrest Orange, not Orange Crush, Gray Bet, Dr. Pepper, Frosty root beer, and of course Coca-Cola, but never Pepsi. We also had the pick of other great kid snacks of the 1950s: Hostess Twinkies, cupcakes, and snowballs. We must have always been hopped up on sugar, I guess, but Aunt Gertie never minded. Myrtle and I also loved going to Aunt Gertie's for another reason. Aunt Gertie had gone to high school with one of our favorite TV stars of the 50s, Gail Storm. Myrtle and I loved Gail Storm, and we loved having Aunt Gertie tell us about it over and over and over. We never got tired. We actually felt a connection to her through our aunt. Scouting was very big in the Den family. Cub Scout, Boy Scout, Brownie Scout, Girl Scout, you name it, the Dens were part of it. One year when I was a Brownie Scout, I wanted to win a free trip to summer camp by selling the most Girl Scout cookies. I went to Aunt Gertie's house and asked her if she would help me. She was more than happy to. We sat at her kitchen table, which was right by the phone. She pulled out that little varsity phone book and went down the list of names alphabetically, picking out everyone she knew. She wrote a little script for me to read, and I would call each name on that list, reading the script, and take pre-orders. I sold a total of 113 boxes of cookies that year, and yes, I won the trip. Well, none of you know this, but Aunt Gertie introduced me to the very first racy novel I ever read. On occasion, I would ride my bike over to Nickel Street Furniture on the days she worked. She worked 2 days a week to visit with her. As you all know, Aunt Gertie was an avid reader and she read all the current bestsellers. On one of these visits, she had just finished the novel The Group by Mary McCarthy. I was asking her about it when she up and said, "Here, why don't you take it since I just finished it?" Wow, I thought it was amazing. It must have been. I still remember it to this day. Of course, by today's standards, I guess it was rather mild, but back then it really pushed the envelope. Aunt Gertie also taught me how to make matzo balls. It was her job at Passover Seder to make the matzo balls for the soup. They were never made ahead of time. When we would get to the part in the Seder where it was about time to start the meal, she would discreetly get up from the table and go back into Nanny Rose's kitchen. A few seconds later, I would get up and sneak away and follow her into the kitchen to watch what she was doing. She instructed me to never roll the matzo balls in ball, as that would make them come out hard. Just scoop a spoonful gently, pat it into shape, and then scrape it into the soup. That way they would always be light and fluffy, and that's how I make them to this day. It was Aunt Gertie who had the burden of calling me on the morning of my 45th birthday to tell me my father had died. Aunt Gertie played the piano at my wedding, and she played the piano at my mother's wedding. it was better than having Marvin Hamlin. As I got older, Aunt Gertie and I lost touch to a certain degree. We would see each other on special occasions, but that was about it. Hey. Sorry about that. Oh, I still have one other thing to insert. I'm sorry, I hate to make y'all sit in the rain. We all know how talented Aunt Gertie was at the piano. But Aunt Gertie was also an early pioneer in the music production business. In the early 1960s, she started one of the very first boy bands called the Democrats. Y'all remember that? The Democrats, which featured her three sons, Bubba, Stevie, and Brian. They performed on stage at the Basic USO Talent Night. And they were most notable for the cover of the JFK campaign song, Who Remembers? High Hopes, that Frank Sinatra. I remember sitting there in the audience watching. It was the most wonderful minute. I can't listen to that song to this day without thinking of the Democrats performing it. Now back to my script. As I said, Aunt Gertie and I had lost touch for a while. Then several years ago, we somehow got reconnected. I don't even remember what caused this to happen. We started talking to each other on a regular basis, once a week, or at the most once every 2 weeks. Through these talks, we became more than just niece and aunt. We became friends, good friends. In fact, Aunt Gertie was one of my best friends. We talked about everything like girlfriends do. I look forward to these chats, as I know she did. We had a past that connected us, and we would reminisce about old times. As all of you know, Aunt Gertie had a memory that never stopped. She could recall the smallest detail from 50 years back. We also talked about current events. I had had several Austin friends who moved to Houston, and as fate would have it, she became friends with them as well. So we always had that to talk about. Many times I would confide in her, and she would confide in me. I guess I was naive. Aunt Gertie was so youthful and healthy. I thought she would live forever. Or at least to 120, like Abraham's wife, Sarah. I was devastated when she didn't make it out of the hospital that last time. I still think about her on a regular basis. I wanted so much to be at her funeral, not for her, but for me. It just wasn't to be. There are still days I want to give her a call, pick up where we left off. Since that can never be, I will just have to rely on my fond memories. May her memory be a blessing.
Okay.
Anything else that comes, Jerry?
Okay.